Well,
Yeah.
welcome. Thanks for joining us so much.
No, thanks for inviting me. I love talking about NASA anytime, anywhere.
It's so amazing. I was just talking to Hans. He read your book in 24 hours. So,
Oh, I
Oh
started
my
I started I started, Thursday, I think. Yeah, and then I just finished, like, a little bit ago. Oh, it's
wow.
just a fun, fast read, yeah, I mean, it's a
Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, I wrote it kind of intentionally in a kind of a conversational tone, and it's the kind of thing. It's not a novel, obviously, where you have to know the plot and the characters. You can pretty much just open to any page and start reading, and yeah, go back again to another page some other time, and yeah, lots of photos too. I think some of the best comments I've gotten were, yeah, I love all of the photos.
Wait, hold on, then I'm going to have to complain because the thing is I got it on
Oh,
Kindle, and I
oh
didn't see any pictures, and I missed out on the
yeah,
pictures.
yeah, yeah,
It's
there
in the
were
print version, yeah.
yeah, there were over 100 photos in there. So yeah, that I do kind of regret that. I mean, it was just too much. It's too involved to try to get the photos in the Kindle
Yeah, then
version.
it ends up being like the file ends up being much, bigger
Yeah,
than it's supposed
yeah,
to be, though,
yeah,
like,
yeah,
damn, yeah, yeah, no, I get it.
yeah. Well, thanks for reading the Kindle version anyway, though. I
Yeah.
appreciate that.
Yeah. No, no, it was fun. I was talking to Sarah about it. Just, like all the people, like obviously there's people here that I won't know who they are, but every
Yeah,
other chapter has like this like famous like, astronaut hero that everyone, pretty much anyone who knows any like American history would know about.
yeah,
So that was so and I love obviously I love like all the little details and all that. I know Sarah has questions for you. But
yeah,
I also have some questions about some of the like the more like stuff that only like someone like you would know from working there, like all the way they do the taste tests and all that.
oh
That
yeah,
would be hilarious. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay, great. Well, I'm looking forward to the next hour or however long we have.
yeah, we normally do about an hour. And yeah, I just want to kick it off by asking you, like, what was your inspiration for writing this book?
Well, actually, so I never intended or wanted to be an author, and I've never taken a writing course. But so I'm all over social media, which kind of surprises some people because I'm almost 74. I'll be 74 in February. But I mean, I'm on Blue Sky and Threads and Twitter and Instagram and LinkedIn, and I have my own website, and so there's just so many people, obviously, literally all over the world that love news about at NASA, and so I have thousands. I have 50,000 followers on LinkedIn, and anyway, so I'm always put 99% of what I post is about NASA. Well, maybe I should say 90% because I've started posting things about my book too, and a few acting photos every once in a while. But anyway, all of that to say that about 10 or 12 years ago, some of my friends started telling me, you need to write a book. Because I would post some cool thing I got to do or some cool astronaut I spent some time with or something like that, and so my first thought was, "Oh, yeah, right. What do I know about writing a book, and who's going to want to read it?" There are 100 books written by astronauts, but they finally convinced me, and I've had several people tell me, "Well, yeah, there are lots of astronaut books, but you had a completely different perspective than they did." So, you kind of you may even have even heard some of the stories that I tell in my book, but they're telling a different view of the story. So, anyway, it's worked out really well. I published it. It came out just about a little over a year ago. I've sold over 1,000 copies, and mostly all good reviews. So I'm very, very happy and proud of it, actually.
Ah, that's amazing. Congratulations.
Yeah.
And how did you first start working at NASA? Because I know you've been there. Was it 50 years that you've been working there?
Well, that's kind of an interesting story too. So I grew up. I should give a little bit of a background. So I grew up just 5 or 6 miles from what is today the Johnson Space Center. It was back then, and so my family moved into that home before uh, there was a Johnson Space Center. And in fact, it was the Manned Spacecraft Center back then. And so in 1964, I was 12 years old and in junior high, middle school, whatever they call it. And they opened the Manned Spacecraft Center, and the first two classes of astronauts and all of their kids, of course. Their family moved into my community. And so all of a sudden, I'm seventh grade, and I'm playing on the seventh grade football team with the sons of two astronauts, Frank Borman's son, Fred, and Scott Carpenter's son, Jay. And so all through middle school and high school, I was friends with lots of the astronauts' kids. And so, but still, I was not ever a, science engineering kind of person. I was always good with numbers and math, and so I never really, and of course too, growing up with it, it may sound funny to say NASA was no big deal. I mean, almost everybody I knew, was either an astronaut or an astronaut's kid, or their parents worked for NASA in some way, and so I went away to. Uh, well, let me back up even a little bit more. So before I was going to say I went away to college, but before I went to college, University of Texas in Austin, I was 17 the summer of 1969 when the Apollo 11 launch went. And the TV networks would send crews down from their headquarters in New York, and they would put a mobile home trailer on site at NASA, and put a backdrop and a desk and a camera, and that was their studio. And they would invite astronauts and flight directors and other NASA officials in and interview them. And when they filmed an interview back in 1969, there was no internet or videotape, and so you had to broadcast that interview on TV. You had to physically move the film from Houston to New York, and so they hired me, local 17-year-old kid, to twice a day make the 100-mile round trip from NASA to Houston Intercontinental Airport to drop that film off to be put on a plane to be flown to New York. And so I did that with working for ABC for the news media for Apollo 11, Apollo 12, Apollo 13. I'd gone away to UT for Apollo 14, but then I was able to come back and do Apollo 15 and a couple of the Skylab missions. And so then I'm now in school at UT, and I'm majoring in business. And I have, I like probably most people, I'm thinking, well, not that I really ever thought about, being an astronaut or working at NASA anyway, but even then in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, well, you have to be a engineer, a scientist, or an astronaut to work there, right? And again, I'm a business major, but I had a part-time job at the IRS, helping pay my way through school, and I was hearing some of my coworkers, they were talk about this civil service exam. That's how you got a job back in that time period with the government, was you took an exam, and it was called the Professional and Administrative Career Exam, PACE. And they kept talking about, how hard it was, but boy, if you could score well, it would be worth it because you could get promoted, or, even if you already had a job there, you could get promoted to a higher professional category if you did well. At the same time, though, they kept talking about how hard it was, and the way it worked was, if you took the test, you got six different scores. They had six different, whatever you want to call them, knowledge, skill, capability, so that depending on how you did, if you scored, really well in one certain area, that would be the area that you would be most suited for a job with that kind of skill or knowledge. But they said sometimes, and this is a scale of 70 to 100. So if you scored below 70, they just didn't give you a score for that category. And so I'm thinking, well, I'm not really worried about getting a job with a business degree from UT. I'm getting close to graduating, but I didn't have a job lined up yet. And I thought, well, what the heck, I'll take this test. And so when you sign up for the test, you indicate on the application which cities with government agencies in them you'd be willing to, locate to. And of course, I put Houston because I lived here, not even thinking that NASA was a government agency. You don't really think of it like, the IRS or Veterans Administration or Social Security Administration or something like
Right.
that, right? And so this is one of the reason I don't tell this story too often is because I'm almost embarrassed. When I got my test results back, I had four 100s and two 98s. I almost made a perfect score.
Amazing. That's amazing. I
Yeah,
read that in the book and I was like, wow.
yeah, and so, I'm thinking, "Oh gosh, they sent me the wrong scores. I This can't be mine." Right? Well, and so without even realizing, what was gonna happen next, NASA contacted me and said, "Hey, would you like to come interview for a job in our business office?" And, I'm thinking, "Well, you have a business office?" And so obviously I did. And one last funny thing about all that is that, again, having grown up down here, that the guy who interviewed me was the father of one of my friends in high school. And, so I don't know if that helped, but I'm sure it didn't hurt. Anyway, that's how I got started with NASA. Never, intending to have a career there as I was growing up.
That's fantastic. And what was the first what was the first launch that you watched? Was it when you were working there, or were you?
Yeah, yes. Well, so I started there in 1975, and so they had just um, finished the Apollo program and Skylab. That was pretty much the last Apollo program. Is Flight was in 72. Skylab was mostly 73, went a little bit into 74, and then there was the Apollo Soyuz test project, which was a joint mission between the U.S. and the Russians. And so then I started in 75, and they were already starting to work on designing the space shuttle, but they hadn't planned to have the first flight until at least 1979. So there was, for the first 4 years I was there were really no launches. And so my first couple of years there, I worked on the new spacesuit. So basically, what I did, my job was to manage contracts. Award and negotiate and manage contracts. And most of them, as I grew into the job, were multi-billion dollars. Um, so the first contract I worked on was for the new spacesuits. They weren't going to use the Apollo spacesuits for the shuttle program, but in 1979, after 3 or 4 years, they moved me into the office that was buying the space shuttle orbiter vehicles. The vehicle that the astronauts flew in. And some people get confused because the entire space shuttle was not only the orbiter vehicle but also the big orange external tank and four main engines, and or I guess, or what is it? Three main engines and the two solid rocket boosters on each side. But those were all separate contracts. The one I was working on was for the orbiter vehicle itself that the astronauts flew in. And so, so a couple of funny stories about that. Well, the first one's not that funny. They had hoped to fly in '79, but they couldn't uh, get the tiles. Were attaching tiles for the thermal protection system to protect it from the heat of reentry, and the tiles kept falling off. And it took them, you know, basically 2 years to figure out how to fix that. And so the first flight ended up being in 1981 instead of
Oh wow.
1979. And so, and of course, I wrote about this in my book. One day, and so it was April of '79 or 81. And so one morning, I think it was in February or March, I walked into the building on my way to the office and stepped in the elevator, and somebody had put up like a little poster on the wall, and it said, "We will launch in March." Where and you look at the calendar, and then they had that was kind of at the top of the page, and the bottom of the page they had the 12 months, and it said January, February, March, 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 December. Right? And of
That's
course we
funny.
didn't make it. It was April, but uh, yeah. So I saved that calendar. I still have it. Yeah,
That's great.
but then it was actually, and of course, if I'd been working at the Kennedy Space Center in Florida, I probably would have seen more launches. I only saw one shuttle launch, and it wasn't until 4 years later in 1985. But boy, that was amazing. I was, about the closest you could get was 3 miles. And if you're there and there's a shuttle launch, obviously you see it first, and then it takes the sound waves a while to travel to you, and so that you see it and then you hear it, and then you feel it. You could literally feel the ground vibrating. And so that was, boy, I'll never forget that. That was very cool. But it was the only shuttle launch I ever saw.
Oh wow. What? How come you only like? What was the reason for that?
Oh, well, I was just too busy. And I guess I was, again, the Space Shuttle Program Office, the people that were kind of, responsible for managing the Space Shuttle program were in Houston. And, I'm sure there was, the
I
high
see.
level senior managers would travel down for a launch, but most of us, guys working in the trenches, so to speak, it was much more difficult to try to take the time off and pay for a trip to Florida. And of course, as you probably know, you know, half the time the launch gets delayed, and you don't know if it's going to actually launch the next day or 2 days later or a week later. So anyway, it's just a combination of things that I only got to see one.
Oh, I see. Yeah, I was looking for the word the other day because I was like, what's that word when it's scrubbed, right? They say
Scrubbed, yeah, yeah, yeah. That's right. Yeah, I started to say aborted, but that's not really. Yeah,
um,
yeah.
yeah, because I was trying to think of the word, but yeah, I know. I went over to Cape Canaveral, and it got pushed by one day when I saw a launch, but it could obviously be longer. And yeah, I can understand why
Yeah.
if you're working, you can't really do that.
Yeah, you got to do a NASA social, right?
Yes, yes.
Oh, yeah, those I did 3 of them, yeah, and the funny thing is, I they wouldn't allow NASA employees to be part of, to, attend a NASA social. So, as it turned out, I retired in January of 2017, and there was a NASA social in February of 2017. And so I said, "Okay, I'm applying." And I did, and I was selected. So, and then I ended up doing 2 more after that too. And I met some friends I'm still friends with. There's one group I did an Artemis social that was in New Orleans, and this was the December of 2019, just before the pandemic, and I'm still close friends with 4 or 5 of those folks. We still do Zoom 3 or 4 hour Zooms every few
Ah,
months just to keep in touch. And I mean, it's 6 years ago. Yeah,
yeah. That's
yeah,
amazing. Yeah, the people are really great, and I feel like everybody has like a common interest, so it makes
yeah,
it like a
yeah,
very nice atmosphere.
yeah, yeah.
I think they still do them actually,
Oh yeah, oh yes, yes they do. Yes, yes they sure do.
which is absolutely amazing because it just like gives people insight into
Yeah,
what's going on like behind the scenes.
yeah, yeah. Yeah,
Um,
yeah, and of course, part of that for me was, oh, I already know that, I've done that, but it was I guess the reason I wanted to do it was just again getting to meet and hang around with all these. I mean, there were, authors and museum specialists and weather women, and I mean, you name it, any kind of career. The lawyers. There was one was a pro football player. And just amazing the breadth of different uh, uh, jobs that those folks had.
Definitely. No, it is so interesting. Yeah, I think it's a really great program. What they do.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
really um so I wanted to ask you, how did you see like NASA change over the years? Because I mean, 50 years is just it's such a long time.
Yeah, well, this probably isn't the answer you were looking for, but I have to be honest. Uh, the biggest change I noticed. So I started in the mid 70s. It was all kind of new to me. Working in a yeah, I mean, I've been in high school and college, and all of a sudden I'm there with adults 10, 20, 30 years older than me. Anyway, uh, the way that and most it was almost all men, right? And the way that the men treated women, I mean, the things they said, the things they did, they would be fired on the spot today for doing things that I saw them do, with my own 2 eyes back in the mid 70s. And so that I mean that's may sound strange to say, but that has always been the most striking difference, change to me. That thank goodness, improved over the years. It's still not perfect, but boy, it's people would be shocked. I mean, at a place like NASA, you know,
Mhm.
uh,
Oh.
people would be shocked to know that that kind of stuff was going on. And again, I was just an, I guess, naive, young boy, and wow, I was not ready for that. But yeah, again, it got much better fairly quickly. They it was just 4 years later in 1979 when they picked the first class of astronauts that included women.
Oh, that changed things, of course. Yeah, I imagine.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, definitely. That would change things, and I suppose the technology also rapidly changed. I mean,
Yeah. Yeah, but I mean, other than that, I don't really know that I would say. I mean, it was always just so. I loved that job. Oh my gosh, and I've always felt very lucky to be. I felt like one of those, few people who woke up every morning and looked forward to going to my job. And I wouldn't, and even more than that, not just at NASA, because I spent 10 years at NASA headquarters, and so I visited every single NASA center, most of them multiple times, and so I know the whole agency, and it's not just working at NASA. And I'm sure I'm biased, but the Johnson Space Center here in Houston is by far my favorite. The astronauts are here, generally the program office managers are here, and all of the astronaut training is here. And yeah, I love that job. I was just thinking the other day, I do, Space Center Houston is right next door, and I'm a volunteer there. I go speak. They have me come over and speak to students, about once a month or so, and they have a tram. That's the it's the official visitor center for Johnson Space Center, because you otherwise you can't get on site there without a NASA badge. But they have trams that kind of very slowly uh, go down the streets, and then they make a couple of stops and let's take the Space Center Houston visitors inside and let them look around. But it was always kind of weird to me I'd be walking from one building to another and I'd see one of those trams go by and I think, wow, those people paid good money just to come and look at this place, and they're paying me. NASA's paying me to come here every day, and that's just I just always that always made me feel very very fortunate.
oh, and it's so nice that you're kind of giving back now by
Oh
volunteering
yeah,
and
yes, absolutely, yes. I think that's kind of been in the back of my mind one of the main reasons I do that.
I have a quick question. It might derail the conversation for 1 second. Get back to
Yeah.
it, and it's because I don't think anyone else is gonna ask you about it,
Uh-huh.
but I am. So you not only do you have a career with NASA, but you have also a very, very interesting to me secondary career of some years in an entirely different field,
Yes.
in the field of theater.
Yes.
Can you tell us about that? Because I was like, whoa, see, I love theater
Yes.
probably
Yes.
as much as
Oh.
I love
Oh, yes. I would love to tell you
science.
about that. I
Oh, go ahead, tell
so
us.
it's funny because I was in the band in high school, and so a lot of schools, I don't know how, if every high school in the country does it, but our high school always had a senior play, where the
Oh yeah.
seniors, yeah, and it was always a musical because that's usually the shows that have the most characters in them. And but I wasn't even in my high school senior play because I was the band president my senior year, so I was playing in the orchestra. And so even though a lot of my friends had some acting, if you want to call it that, very much amateur, but I didn't even have that. And then fast forward to again, I think it was about 1979. I'd been at NASA for 4 years, and I'd never even thought about theater. And one of my friends that I worked with said, "Hey, my wife is in a theater production." It was uh, Hello Dolly.
Hello, Dolly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and he said, I want to go see it, but I don't want to sit by myself. Would you go with me? I said, yeah, yeah, sure, I'd love to. And I went down there, and it was just this intimate little theater. uh, probably only held, I don't know, 150 people at that, and the front row, it was literally just like a foot or two from the stage. So if the actor happened to walk by, you could almost reach out and touch them. And it was just,
Mhm.
and I loved the show. In fact, I ended up dating one of the girls in the chorus later. Uh, but I fell in love with it, and I thought, okay, I gotta become involved in this somehow. And so I asked somebody about it, and they said, well, I said, well, I've never acted, but I play an instrument. And I said, well, our next show is Jesus Christ Superstar, and you could audition for that. And I did, and so I played in that. And then the next show after that was, I think it was uh, Pippin, and I
Mm.
decided, and so as I'm there, and the orchestra was just literally like, a couple of feet away from the stage, and so actors would come by, and I'm sitting there again. I can see the sweat on their brows. I'm so close, and I'm watching them for like 12 performances, and I'm thinking to myself, I can do that. And so the next musical, Pippin, I decided to audition, and so I was cast in the chorus. And boy, I just loved that show. Oh, that was one of in fact, talking about keeping in touch. So this was 1979, I think. And I think it was 25 years later, like 2004, we had a cast reunion. And
Oh, wow.
and I think I know at least one or two people involved weren't even still alive. But that was, I mean, that's, and I've been in like 25 shows, and that's by far the closest of any cast I've ever been a part of. And anyway, I could talk for an hour about all of this, but I did want to mention. So I did three or four Shakespeare, Midsummer Night's Dream,
Oh,
Taming of the Shrew, Othello, Comedy of Errors, and my biggest part was, and this was after I'd taken a break, and I had moved back to Houston from NASA headquarters. Uh, I played Kris Kringle in Miracle on 34th Street. That was about 4 or 5 years
Oh, wow.
ago.
that's a fun role.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. That was. But I was in almost every scene.
No, I saw the list. It's impressive. There's practically nothing you haven't done, so that's awesome.
Yeah, but that was probably the most fun part I ever had, of course. Yeah, but
Chris
there
Kringle.
was another show I have to tell you, also, and this is again one of the reasons I love it. I was in a show you probably never heard of. It was called Leading Ladies, and
No.
without, yeah,
No.
yeah. And anyway, it's about a couple of guys who are trying to pull off a scam by they're two men, and they dress up as women. And anyway, it's a comedy, and there's at one point I'm the only person on stage, and I'm reading this letter that was intended for someone else, but someone handed it to me, and I think it's for me. And so it's really, it's not because of my acting. It's the script was just so hilarious. I'm reading it, and the audience is just cracking up. And in my entire, acting career, I never lost it on stage. But there was this one performance where I'm reading, I'm saying my lines, and the audience is just laughing so hard. And you know how when other people are laughing, sometimes it's hard.
Yeah, you start
I
laughing.
came so close to just losing it. I will never forget that. But you can imagine how much fun that is. And there I am on
Yeah.
stage by
Yeah.
myself, and there's just nothing like it. There's no feeling like that.
Yeah.
No business like show business, I think
Yeah,
is the
yeah, yeah. I guess that's
Except
why
space
we got
business.
connected in the
space
in the
business,
first place,
exactly.
right? Was that kind of an acting connection?
I think so, I
You must
think
have had a
so, but then
mutual friend or something, huh?
yeah, I think it was something like that because 'cause I'm obsessed with both space and acting,
Yeah,
so
yeah,
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 it was a kind of
yeah,
a mutual
yeah.
thing, um, but yeah, I want to get down to Houston, and I wanna come and see
Oh,
you in
yes,
this, in the center. I really have to do that because
yes,
that sounds really amazing.
yes.
But going back to your book, I wanted to ask, like, what do you think, like, the younger generation would take away from the journey that humanity humanity has gone on, because it's quite extraordinary, really, if you think about it.
Yes. Well, I just, and I think I think what I would want people, or especially young people, and that's why I mean, I've talked to classes of third graders, multiple times, and that's about as young as I've spoken to. But third graders, uh, fourth to sixth grade, middle school, high school, college, astronomy clubs, and and so especially for the young ones, though, I'm hoping that what I say and what I've written inspires them to continue the exploration of space and all that we're learning and all the new technology and also when I have the opportunity to make the point that don't think that you can't do it. Never the never give up and believe in yourself and take a chance. And one of my stories, in fact, I put it in the introduction to my book, is that there was uh, uh, a guy, Charlie Bolden. He was in the naval reserve, or not reserves, but naval test pilot school. And an astronaut, Ron McNair, actually, he was one of the astronauts who was killed in the Challenger accident, went down to visit, and he's talking with Charlie, and they were NASA was about to announce or had just announced a new application class for astronauts. And Ron asked Charlie, hey, are you going to apply? And Charlie said, no, they would never select me. And Ron told him, that's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. You go fill out that darn application and submit it. And he did. And not only was he selected as an astronaut, he became the NASA administrator, the head of NASA. And he almost didn't even apply because he thought they weren't going to select him. So that's my perfect story for don't ever sell yourself short kind of thing.
Yeah,
That's brilliant and really, actually, really inspiring, because, and it sometimes just takes one other person, doesn't it, to
Yes, yes,
support you. And
yes,
and also, you only the worst failed test you'll ever have is the test you didn't take.
yes. That's true. That's true too. Yeah. In fact, and I think just another thing I include in my I think it's in my introduction also is, you may have heard the phrase failure is not an option. It's
Oh yeah, and you have
yeah,
read that in, yeah,
yes.
yeah,
yeah. So that's from the Apollo 13 movie. Gene Kranz, who was
yeah.
the lead flight controller, actually he was the flight controller when Apollo 11 landed on the moon, and he was one of the Apollo 13 flight directors. And so he actually his character in the movie said that, but he never actually said it himself. It was just a line written in the script to add drama.
Right, to
But it
make it
became
seem
so
cooler.
popular that he kind of took it on, and so now when he signs something, he signs. In fact, he wrote
Makes
the name.
his motto.
Yeah, the name of his first book was "Failure is Not an
Failure is not
Option."
option.
Yeah, yeah.
That's
For
funny.
again, so what I say is, well, okay, if you're trying to save the lives of three astronauts who are about to, die in space, okay,
Right.
failure's not an option. But otherwise, I'm sure you've heard this too. Failure is a requirement. If you're not failing, you're not trying hard enough.
Yeah, correct. Yeah, and you're not learning things.
Yes, yes,
Yeah, definitely, and especially with NASA, because I mean it's such uncharted territory, space flight. So
yeah,
there's going to be a lot of failure, isn't there?
yes.
It's not like
Oh,
Oh, and
yes.
any
things
other
that go
industry.
wrong. Let me ask you, because one of the moments in the book that made me laugh out loud was the whole woodpecker incident. One of those things that goes wrong that you can't predict and no one will ever think about.
Yeah, yeah. For those who uh, didn't get to read the book, there was a shuttle launch that was delayed because the shuttle stack was out on the launch pad, but uh, a woodpecker in heat mistook the external tank with about 4 inches of foam around it for a tree, and it landed on the tank and started pecking and would hit and most woodpeckers build their homes about 8 inches into the tree, and so he'd get about 4 inches and would hit metal, and he would just move over and do it again, and move over and do it again, and move over and do it again, and he pecked 70 holes and the external
Oh my
tank foamed.
My goodness.
So they had to roll the whole shuttle stack back into the vehicle assembly building to repair it, and then roll it back. And so anyway, yeah, I delayed the shuttle launch for a woodpecker delayed the uh, and a woodpecker and he delayed the shuttle launch for about a week.
Wow.
people were kind. Let me tell you, I don't want to sound like a complete monster, but like about the second day, I'll be like, someone get a rifle or something. But
Uh, well,
I know
I
he
guess
was a protected species too. I think. Yeah.
I guess they didn't want to shoot at the external tank though.
Right. Right.
Yeah, yeah.
Obviously.
Well,
Yeah, that would be a very bad
yeah.
idea.
Well,
Shooting at the time.
well, and I have to say one of my favorite things about that story is that they put up owls are a natural enemy of woodpeckers, and so they put these like 3 foot high owls around the launch pad, and they played screeching owl noises over speakers, and they had people there on the launch pad looking out for that woodpecker or any other woodpecker, and that was fine during the week. But then over the weekend, they didn't have as many people, and so they had some volunteers come out. And so for those folks that spent the weekend there volunteering, they gave them after they were done, they gave them all T-shirts that said "Pecker Patrol."
That's funny.
Yeah, I've had people ask me, "Hey, can I get one of those T-shirts?" No, I don't think so.
Oh, that's so funny. Oh my gosh, the things that happen, you can't predict these things, can you really?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
'Cause is there a lot of, like, nature around there?
Oh
Or
yes,
is
there
it is
is. Yes, absolutely. Yes.
huh, that's so interesting. Um, and it reminds me of that cartoon. Wasn't there a cartoon, Woody
Yeah.
Woodpecker or something?
Woodpecker. Yeah.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Oh my gosh, that's really funny. And Hans, I know you had a couple more questions, and then we can ask if anyone else
I
has
was
questions.
curious. I was curious about like the things that made me laugh the most. I guess were like weird things that like a civilian wouldn't think about. Um, because I mean I've always wondered about like space food, but I guess I realized yeah you can't taste if you because you're in space you can't really taste in the same way that you would on Earth. So how does that work?
That is true, actually. I think most people don't realize that, but smell is a big part of taste. I don't think most
Hmm.
people realize that. And
Right.
so in space, because of the lack of gravity and the blood, and so you get whatever you want to call it, stuffy nose, and you
Mhm.
just can't smell things as well, and so that is a problem. So actually, they tend to make the food a little more spicy than normal. I've talked to several astronauts who said their favorite food is in space is shrimp cocktail because of the horseradish in the sauce. Uh,
Yeah. So what
That's
what
interesting.
would be too much here on Earth? There's just about
yeah,
right kind of thing.
Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah, but yeah, I think what he was referring to is that I wrote in the book about getting to taste test the food. Obviously the astronauts also did, and I'm sure their ratings carried a little more weight than those of us who were just regular employees. But yeah, they would send out an email note and say, "Hey, we're going to be taste testing some food, Thursday morning, and if you have time."
That sounds like the best job, man.
Oh yeah,
It's like they pay to eat.
yeah, schedule an appointment and come over. And so I did that. I must have done that 10 or 12 times. And I won't tell the whole story, but every time but one, the food was, really pretty good. The one time it wasn't was guacamole. The first two times, because you rated it in, taste, texture, aroma, like there are five different categories. I rated it the first, they actually did it three times, and the first two times it was terrible. And I must not have been the only one to rate it badly, but because normally they only taste tested each food item once, and this one they took them three tries, and it finally worked out. The third time, I mean, I love guacamole, and it was like I said, it was bad the first two tries, but the third time it was okay. It wasn't the best, but if I was served it in a restaurant, I would have eaten it. And so a couple of years later, I had retired, and I asked the woman who ran the food lab, whatever happened with the guacamole? And she said, well, it had been specifically requested, but we never added it to the menu because of the shelf life thing. It just,
Oh,
yes,
that's
it's just like
true.
on
I
Earth. It
mean,
just goes, turns
yeah,
brown.
avocados like the
Oh,
same
yeah.
night. If
Yeah,
you don't hurry up on that,
Yeah.
yeah.
yeah, yeah.
So if anybody has any questions, I think you can just raise, like, there's like a hand button at the bottom of the spaces. But I know, Hans, you have a few more
It's where
questions.
the heart is, right?
It's where the heart is.
Uh,
Yeah.
maybe I'm gonna demonstrate how it goes in case anyone sees it, because I know we have a lot of like people listening here, so I'm sure everyone has some sort of question.
Oh, yeah.
So it's our what it's like next to the 100
That's very good,
the
Hans.
100%. Anyone has questions?
Well, while we're waiting, I'll mention that actually the next thing I'm doing is that actually 3 weeks from today, I'm going to speak at the University of Maryland, a class of aeronautics and astronautics students about. I was invited to come talk about NASA's three worst tragedies: the Apollo 1 fire, and the Challenger accident, and the Columbia accident. And so, because my daughter-in-law got a PhD in aeronautics and astronautics from MIT, and she's a professor now at the University of Maryland. And so she arranged to have me come speak up there. So look, assuming the airlines get straightened out, I'm looking forward to flying up there in 3 weeks.
Let me ask you something. This is more because I know a lot of your post retirement work is still like you just said, like you still talk to people, you inspire young
Yeah.
people. How do you feel like when you hear like maybe someone younger or something be like, the moon landing didn't happen, it was
Oh,
fake, and you're like,
Oh,
ah,
yeah. This is
look
oh,
at these
you,
things.
crazy
How
conspiracy.
does it make you
you,
feel?
believe it or not, I have never heard that. No one has
Oh,
ever,
Really?
well, no one's gonna
You
say it
wouldn't
to
never.
your
dare.
face. You feel embarrassed. You feel
I
foolish.
mean, I've talked to hundreds, thousands of people and students, and no one has ever said anything, or made any kind of comment about, oh, I'm not sure you guys did all that stuff you really did. And I'll tell you too, because I mentioned, or maybe I didn't mention it, but one of the reasons they asked me to speak about all three, because I was working for NASA during the Challenger and Columbia accidents. I was
Mhm.
I was just a student for the Apollo 1 fire in 1967. But one of the astronauts that was killed, Gus Grissom, is the father of two of my good friends in
Oh,
school, and we're still friends. And so, so the kind of thing that, hey, wait a minute, I had good friends who lost their father,
yeah,
in a
Yeah.
fire working to get to the moon. So don't tell me we
yeah,
didn't go. Yeah,
right.
Oh,
No,
gosh.
I
Yeah.
imagine it would be being so infuriating. No, no, but that's all. Yeah, I think
yeah,
most people will be like, not mention that
yeah.
though.
Well,
Look
and of course,
online. There's so many idiots. Oh God,
and of course, the way I've heard it also explained is that, it would be easier to just go than to,
make
for
them.
50 years, convince the world.
It will involve the hundreds of thousands of people on the same
Yeah,
hoax. Everyone
and
will ask people
and
why.
you don't think the Russians or the Chinese or anybody would have said, yeah, that was all a scam?
Of
No,
course.
no, no. Yeah. Anyway.
It's almost.
Sorry, I even brought it up.
Yeah.
There's actually a very interesting question. There's also the flat earthers as well. There's these people who just believe that the earth is flat. And it's just,
Yeah, we're taking pictures of the Earth from above. We know better.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but let me ask you, it's been what do you think is the main reason? I mean, I know we're just about to land on the moon again. What do you think is the delay? Do you think it was a question of money, lack of other political reasons that got in the way? What exactly happened that took so long to get back, which we're going now?
That's a good question. And again, I've been retired for, well, it'll be 9 years in January, so it's hard to really know. Uh, uh, but I actually think it's kind of a combination of all of them. I think that, and some of them are kind of related. I mean,
Mhm.
not enough money is a political thing, right?
Right, that's true.
But yeah, no, I definitely think that not having the money that NASA would that I know they would have liked to have had and could have easily spent to speed up the schedule was
Mhm.
part of it. But I also think there's I mean there's even people out there saying who who was saying, well, because right now the crew vehicle is Orion and the launch vehicle is the Space Launch System (SLS), and people saying, "Oh, we don't need the SLS. That's just a waste of money. We could use one of
Right.
Elon Musk's SpaceX," and so that's kind of going on in the background. Uh, yeah, but other than that, I mean, it just takes. In fact, so I'll tell you kind of a corollary, if you will, to that is that I happen to be one of the NASA people working on the very first NASA agreement with SpaceX. It
Mhm.
was
Oh, yeah.
2006, and so we what NASA was trying to encourage uh, commercial development of space vehicles. We were trying to get like a taxi, if you will, to because we had stopped flying the space shuttle, and we needed to get our astronauts back and forth to the ISS, and we were having to send them to Russia to get there. And so we said, hey, we got $500 million, and any of you commercial companies out there who want to design and build your own spacecraft, and we'll let you design it, however you want. You know, we just want to make sure that it's safe, but
Right.
you can design it however you want. And so we sent out a solicitation, and two of the best proposals we got were from SpaceX and a company called Rocket Plane Kistler, and they actually eventually fell out. So we gave each one of them about $250 million, but they had to provide some funding too. And anyway, so that was 2006, and so and the reason I'm telling this story is that it was, I don't remember exactly, but you know 2012, 2014, whenever the first crew SpaceX launch was. So you know what, uh, 8 10 and 6 8 years,
Oh,
and so it's surprising
yeah.
how long it takes to develop
Of
a
course. Yeah.
spaceship.
No, no. It's a process. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, I think now it's like it seems like everything is like, everybody's gung ho to go back to the moon, and I see like a lot of acceleration in the space industry and a lot of people, pushing for that. Um, so
yeah,
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 it does seem like this big, especially in the last year or so, has been a big change towards, with all of that happening.
I think it's
yeah.
supposed to launch. I mean, we have the Artemis 2. I think it's supposed to launch like early next year or something. But they're not gonna
February.
land. They're just gonna. I
Yeah,
mean, I think they plan to land with the one after that. I mean, you probably know more than
yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah. I think the most current date is, as NASA likes to say, no earlier than, I think it's
That
February
means yeah,
6th,
yeah.
February 5th to February
Mhm.
6th, and that's Artemis 2, and then Artemis 3, when they would actually land, would be about the middle of 2026 or 27.
Yeah. I mean,
So
no
no,
matter what, it's gonna be very, like kind of like an inspiring people for a new inspiring for a new generation that didn't get to see the first time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah, definitely. So next year's calendars will be February, February, February over at NASA.
Pretty much. It's
I'll have to look for one.
you
That's
can
funny.
you can make them.
Oh my gosh.
Perfect. No, but it is really exciting. I mean, I was just thinking the other day how like when the in LA we have the Endeavour
Yeah.
shuttles here,
Oh yeah.
and that
Yeah, I
was
got to I got to see Endeavor. Even though I only got to see one launch, I did get to the Endeavor actually on its way to California.
oh
Made a stop
nice.
here at the Air Force Base, or it used to be an Air Force Base. It's just an airport now, near my home, and I got a VIP, up close tour of Endeavor before it took off to California. Yeah, yeah.
Wow.
So they're making it. They're moving it vertical.
Yeah, I was reading that actually. I mean, it was a massive production to get it through the streets of LA and get it
Oh
over here.
yeah, I've watched the videos and seen the pictures of that move multiple times. That's just incredible. Yeah,
Yeah, it's very cool. I think it's on. Yeah, I think there might be a documentary, or I'm not sure. It's this. The footage is really good.
yeah, yeah,
So yeah, that was just. I remember that it was amazing.
yeah, yeah.
anyone has
So,
any more
oh,
questions? Because I know we're getting close to the hour time, and we don't want to take too much of your time either. Raise your hands, people. I can give you like a little tutorial on how to do it. It's like, because I know not everyone can see it. It's like where the heart is. If you put it has a heart and plus down there. If you click on it, you can see like the all the little symbols, and the one to the extreme right is the one that it's like the hands up. Yeah, there we go. We got a question.
Okay.
I'm like clapping.
I think I've sent you an invite to speak. Oh yeah, hold on. Okay. All right. Did that work? Hi, Paul. Did
Mm.
that work okay?
Yeah, that worked. I wanted to ask her. You were talking about Apollo 1.
Hmm.
I've found very little written on Apollo 1. And
Hmm.
I think the one thing I found was like a little pamphlet. It really wasn't much. How come nobody have you ever think of writing about Apollo 1? Because that was a very interesting time and what happened to those 3 men.
Well, yeah, that's a good point. And you're right. I don't know that there's ever. I mean, there's been lots in several books about Challenger and Columbia,
Mhm,
but I don't know that anyone's ever written a book about the Apollo 1 fire. I wrote a little bit about it in my book, and
mhm,
again, I've looked at a few NASA documents, that talked about the follow up investigation, if you will, and but yeah, that's no, no. Now that you mentioned it, I never thought that. Yeah, that's right. I don't believe anyone's ever written a kind of a full up story or book about it.
mm. No, because
Yeah,
I've read a lot of books on
yeah.
Apollo, and I've never seen anything on the 3 on Apollo 1.
Oh, maybe I should work on that for my second book.
Yeah, that would be great.
There
Yeah,
you
because
go.
again, like I said, I mean, I knew the kids of one of the guys who died in the fire. So,
Mhm.
well, in fact, two, Ed White was one of the others, and Eddie White, his son, was also in school with me. I wasn't friends with him, but he was in school
Right.
with me too. Yeah. Hmm. Yeah, I have to think about that.
Yeah, that would be great if you could write that. I'd love to read that.
Yeah. Huh, okay.
I think I saw another question, but then it just disappeared.
Uh,
Um, so I'm just looking to see. It's just spaces can be a bit funny. Um, hold on a second. Okay. Yeah, I think Luminaris. I think you maybe had the same question because I saw
hmm.
you a couple of emojis from you. Well, this has been really extraordinary. I mean, thank you for your time. I've really I just love learning everything I can about space. So I'm looking forward to reading your book. I haven't read it yet, but Hans has told me it's
Oh,
amazing.
yeah. Well, no. Hey, again, you can probably tell I love talking about this stuff, and I really do appreciate you reaching out and asking me to join you all tonight. It's been a pleasure for me.
Yeah, it's been fantastic, and I'm looking forward to meeting you in person eventually when I when
Yes,
I get over to Houston.
that would be awesome. I'll give you a. In fact, I've done that just recently with a couple of friends. Give them. I When I was actually employed before I retired, I could take people with me and give them tours on site at the Johnson Space Center. But when I retired, I can still go on myself, but I can't take anyone with me. So what I end up doing is I give them a personal tour of the Johnson Space Center, which is the Space Center Houston, which is right next door, because I know where all of the bodies are buried and all of the stories and the history and everything. And so yeah, people seem to really enjoy that. So that's the next best thing.
That sounds fascinating. I'm definitely taking you up on that one.
Yes, yes,
Well, thank you so much. And this is recorded, so you'll be able to send it to people and people can listen back. And thanks everyone
great.
for joining. We really appreciate you supporting the space. And yeah, everybody have a great rest of your day.
All right, great. Thank
Good
you. Yeah,
day.
thanks to all the listeners.
Or
Right.
or or closer to night for the Eastern people, such as I
Take care, guys.
am.
Bye.
Bye.
All right. Bye.